When I first moved into my new house, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in years. No HOA rules watching my every move. No surprise drive-by inspections. No passive-aggressive emails about lawn height or trash cans. Just quiet mornings. A backyard that actually belonged to me. And the freedom to exist without someone measuring the color of my mailbox. I chose this house for one specific reason. It sat outside the HOA boundary, literally a single house beyond their jurisdiction. Close enough to enjoy the nice neighborhood. Far enough to avoid the madness. My neighbors even joked about it. The couple across the street told me, "Congratulations, you bought the only safe house around here." I laughed at the time, thinking it was an exaggeration. I had no idea how serious they were. The first few weeks were peaceful. I got used to waking up without stress, enjoying my coffee, without wondering if I had committed some invisible rule violation. I planted flowers, repainted the porch, set up a small fire pit behind the house, and enjoyed every inch of my new freedom. For the first time in a long time, life felt calm. Then one morning, about 3 weeks after moving in, I found a white envelope tucked under my doormat. The logo on the corner said, Oak Valley HOA, and for a second I thought maybe they were welcoming me to the area. I opened it expecting a flyer or newsletter. Instead, it was a billing statement addressed to Oak Valley resident. I wasn't an HOA resident, but I shrugged it off. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone delivered it to the wrong house. I tossed it aside and didn't think about it again. A week later, another envelope appeared. This one wasn't vague. It had my full name, spelled correctly, typed in bold across the front. That immediately set off alarms. How did they get my name? My address? Why were they contacting someone who wasn't even part of the HOA? I opened the envelope slowly, and when I saw the letter inside, I actually laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, but because it was so ridiculous I thought it had to be a prank. View maintenance contribution, $250. Due immediately. Underneath, in smaller print, all residents benefiting from the HOA-maintained scenic view are required to contribute a minimal fee. I stared at the sentence for a full minute. A view tax. They were charging me for looking at trees that weren't even on their property. I stepped outside, stood in my yard, and looked at the landscape. My house sat on a small hill. Below was a gentle slope of trees and open space. Yes, it was pretty, but the HOA didn't own any of it. They didn't maintain the trees, the grass, the land, nothing. It was just nature. How were they claiming ownership of sunlight hitting leaves and bouncing into my yard? I thought it was nonsense, a scam, a clerical error. But that afternoon, as I carried in groceries, a woman with a clipboard marched straight onto my driveway. She had that unmistakable HOA energy, stern expression, tight smile, hair pulled into a bun so aggressively it was almost a threat by itself. "Hello," she said, without waiting for me to greet her. "I'm Patricia Galloway, president of the Oak Valley Homeowners Association. I assume you received our notice." I blinked. The view tax. She smiled like she was talking to a child who didn't understand basic math. "It's not a tax. It's a contribution. Your home overlooks our maintained area. In fairness, we require all visual beneficiaries to pay a small fee." Visual beneficiaries? I repeated, "I don't live in your HOA." She waved a hand dismissively. "Our bylaws allow external benefit assessments when a neighboring property receives aesthetic advantages." I stared at her. "You mean because I can see trees?" Her smile slipped. "It's more complicated than that." I opened my phone and pulled up the county zoning map. "Actually, it's not," I said. "This land isn't in your HOA, and my house definitely isn't." Her face tightened. "Most new residents don't fight it," she said, voice turning sharp. "It's better to cooperate. Fees can increase for non-compliance." She didn't say it, but I heard what she meant. Intimidation. She left without another word. That night, I started digging. County records, old HOA bylaws, property lines, everything I could find. And every document said the same thing. I was not in the HOA. They had zero authority over me. Not a little. Not some. Zero. The next day, I talked to my neighbors. To my shock, 3 of them, also living outside the HOA boundary, had been paying the view tax for years. They thought they were required, even though none of them had ever signed an HOA agreement. The HOA had been bullying them through official-looking letters and threats of legal escalation. One older man shook his head and said, "They told me I'd lose access to the roads if I didn't pay." Another woman said, "They scare me into thinking I'd get sued." That made me angry, not at the neighbors, but at the HOA. They were extorting people, and they had been doing it quietly for years. I went even deeper, pulling up archived HOA meeting notes online. That's where things got interesting. According to records, the HOA had been struggling financially for years. The community pool needed repairs. The board had overspent on landscaping. They had failed inspections. They were running out of money and losing member support. And then I found a note from a meeting 2 years prior. Proposed external aesthetic contribution fee for adjacent non-members who share the view. My jaw fell open. They had invented the view tax to fill their budget gap, and they were illegally targeting homeowners outside their boundary. A few days later, a new envelope arrived. This one was red. Final notice. $250 overdue. Under that, in all caps, further action will be taken. I knew they were bluffing, but I also knew bluffing could still scare people. So I made a decision. I was going to end this. I knocked on a few doors and talked to more neighbors. One of them told me something that changed everything. "You should talk to Linda. She used to be on the HOA board before she quit." I found Linda living 2 streets over. She opened the door cautiously, but when I explained why I'd come, she sighed and invited me in. "I left the HOA because they were doing things I wasn't comfortable with," she said. The president, Patricia, she started pushing for creative income methods. She handed me a folder filled with old emails, internal notes, financial reports. It confirmed everything. The HOA was broke, and they were manufacturing fake fees to squeeze money out of anyone they could intimidate. I thanked her and told her I planned to confront the board. She nodded. "Be careful. Patricia doesn't like being challenged." The next HOA meeting was the following Tuesday. Their clubhouse was packed. Residents sat in folding chairs, while the board sat at a long table up front. When I walked in, Patricia's eyes narrowed instantly. "You're not a member," she said. "This meeting is for people affected by your illegal actions?" I said loudly. The room stirred. I stepped forward, holding the folder Linda gave me. "You've been issuing fake invoices to homes that aren't part of your HOA, charging people for a view tax that isn't legal, threatening them with imaginary penalties, extorting them." Patricia slammed her hand on the table. "You have no right." I held up printed county zoning maps. "I'm not in your HOA, and neither are several of my neighbors. Yet you've been charging them by inventing fees not recognized by the county.